Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And let's start off with a little bit of the entertainment uh, venue, and that's the Super Bowl. Very interesting. Of course, it's part of woke corporatism at this point that you have. I think it started with Billie Jean King about inclusion, and then we had the halftime show where Eminem took a knee, probably worth what $300 million or something. And then you had the liberal hypocrisy of none of them, or not none of them, most of them not wearing masks. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I actually didn't watch the Super Bowl this year. Uh, haven't really watched the NFL for quite a while. I started losing interest in it when I switched to streaming services and cut the cord and actually was not able to watch the Super Bowl and
Okay.
found I didn't miss it.
Can I
So,
interject one thing really quick? Because I think the NFL does well in spite of itself. Uh, I've seen reruns of older, like Monday Night Football, 30, 40 years ago, what have you. It was all this political correctness, wokeism, and just the corporatization of the NFL has actually soured it. They're living off past times. So I will concur, Dr. Lobkin.
yeah, I mean, they really are. I mean, it did rebound. The Super Bowl ratings this year were actually very good. I think that has more to do with the fact that so much had been canceled over the last 2 years that people are just dying to get back to normal, and watching the Super Bowl is part of that normal.
Yeah, in
But
fact,
I
like
mean,
the dog show in Philadelphia got huge ratings. Yeah, I mean anything is people coming back to anything is a positive. Yes.
but I think it did make a big difference seeing all of these people not wearing masks. And I don't know how many people know this or not, but N95 masks were actually left on everybody's seat.
Did
So
not know that.
so everybody had a mask that they were capable of putting on, and virtually nobody did. And of course, the celebrities didn't wear masks. You saw, the attendees not wearing masks. And I think that just fueled the fire for all of the governors who are pulling back mandates.
I would agree. And what does it do to? We were going to talk about this a little further on down about Justin Trudeau's essentially launching a fascist state in Canada due to the mask or the vaccine protests. Your thoughts?
Trudeau has lost all credibility. He barely squeaked in the last time he was up for election. I don't see him getting in at all the next time. But not only is Canada responding to this, but you're starting to see these trucker convoys across the world. Basically, had Trudeau just gone, all right, let's talk, we'll deal with this, disperse, and we'll have discussions, nothing would have happened. Because he took a hard line, now you're seeing similar things pop up everywhere. He actually accelerated his opposition on a global scale.
A
And
100%, but it really goes into the fact he was never qualified. I think we've talked about this
yeah,
before. I mean, the guy, his father was a horrible prime minister, by the way. He was a party boy. I think his biggest claim to fame, he was a boxer. And as soon as he had any pressure, he's never had business experience. He never did exactly what you just articulated in terms of sitting down, talking to people. He's such a wussy. He freaks out and leaves Ottawa. I mean, imagine him in like World War II. He's not exactly Winston Churchill.
no, the mayor of Toronto actually made some comments about him the other day. And he said that basically he has done what he always does. If people disagree with him, he doubles down and calls them racists. And then the mayor went on to say, ironically, I spoke to a lot of citizens, and the only person they could ever name that actually went around in blackface was Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, it's Interesting, 100% agreement that he's creating he's creating a whole movement, putting further fuel on the whole controversy that's been, or the whole political mandate on mandates and masks. It's the end of his political career. Couldn't happen soon enough. The only reason he got in last time is because they called an election during COVID. But he's just been, you know, like cockroaches. When the light comes on, they scuttle away. The light's been on him. He's been in a situation that took some finesse, some strategic thinking, and he failed on all accounts.
Absolutely. And, there was also some speculation. Biden called Trudeau and said, you have to do something about this. And I don't know if Biden pushed him to do more of this, or it's because Biden just wanted this over that he doubled down. Because remember, the first thing that Biden did when he got into office was kill the Keystone Pipeline, which has put our relationship with Canada on, precarious ground because they were relying on that pipeline. So Biden reaching out to Trudeau now, Trudeau's like, well, you screwed me. I'm going to screw you.
Yeah, there's no love lost there. The whole Keystone Pipeline was a travesty. You would have given us a lot more leverage with the whole Russia Ukraine situation. It was Biden being asleep at the switch. They put a stack of reversals in front of him, reversing Trump's initiatives, and he probably didn't even know what the heck he was signing because no sane person would get rid. It was 2/3 of the way built. Explain that one, genius. So I think the biggest thing in the news, Dr. Lopkin, is the Durham report. And I think it has huge implications. Hillary Clinton is a CNN poll, believe it or not, that a half of Democrats want Hillary investigated. But it also goes to the whole fact of the media. Um, Tulsi Gabbard, who's a Democrat, basically came out and said that the media work to undermine our democracy. I 100% agree with her, and they're doing nothing. I'm talking your corporate media, your mainstream, except for Fox, Newsmax, and maybe One American's News, and possibly, obviously, some streaming sources. There are crickets going on. Nothing. They couldn't get enough of Trump. It's not even about Trump, though. It's about this equate. I think this is a bigger crime and has larger repercussions internationally, a la Russia, domestic, than water. It makes Watergate look like a college frat party.
Yeah, this is a major story. The broadcast networks have given it a grand total of 0 minutes of coverage. CNN has so far given it about 2.5 minutes
Yeah, I
of
thought it was two and a half.
coverage.
Yep.
You know, um, they don't want to, get into this because Washington Post, New York Times, they won Pulitzer Prizes for their coverage of the Russia collusion controversy. And now, in all realism, they should be giving those awards back because they were completely fooled.
Well, I
Tulsi
don't think they
Gabbard.
were fooled. I actually disagree. I think they were willing conspirators. I think seeing anyone who actually dug a little deeper into this, they knew it was a bunch of bullshit. Okay, the whole thing
Well,
made
that
no sense. It was
actually
bullshit.
that's the key though. And that's the difference. As you said, anybody who dug a little deeper, none of them dug. They didn't want to dig. So they weren't so much co-conspirators as they just let it happen. They didn't look into it at all.
Because it fit their agenda and their
Yes.
overwhelming compulsion to unseat Trump. They couldn't. They were repulsed by him because he was everything they weren't. A
And you know what?
nationalist for one.
And actually, I'm going to go a little further. I don't think it was just about Trump. Because if you remember during the campaign, Hillary went after Tulsi Gabbard for being a Russian operative. This was how she was dealing with whoever was against her. And she pulled so many dirty tricks that when Trump beat her, she had to try to cover her tracks, which is why they continued doing this into his presidency. It was her way of going, oh, well, let's get rid of him so nobody knows the dirty tricks that we did.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is she on the on the ground on this one in terms of, is her political career over? I mean, was a lot of talk about her being resurrected. I think this severely diminishes any, because she's going to have to answer to this. She might even be indicted.
I think it depends on how far Durham pushes and what he uncovers. Obviously, the media is giving her a pass, so there's a huge segment of the population that doesn't even know this is going on. Legally, let's face it, the buck stops with her. It was her campaign. It was her, they were paying the bills. There's no way that the lawyers did this without her say so.
Of
So
course.
we know she is behind this. She's the one that called the shots. As far as I'm concerned, she should certainly be indicted. But
Can
we'll
Durham
see.
indict her?
I think he can.
And then it's
From
game over.
from
They
what we've
have to cover
heard,
that.
yeah, from what we've heard so far, there are more people cooperating with the Durham investigation every day. He is gaining momentum. And there is a good possibility that a whole lot more indictments are going to hit in the coming few months. And of course, the closer we get to November, the more those indictments are going to hurt the Democrats.
And that's what I have to disagree with you a little bit on. The media has no interest in covering this. I agree with you 100% on that. But it's going to get to a point with critical mass. If there's some large scale, big trophy indictments, the mainstream media is going to have to cover it. You can't not cover it. It's impossible.
If they indict Hillary, yes, that's going to get coverage. If they indict
Jake Sullivan.
Jake Sullivan, yes, that's who I was trying to think of. If they indict him, the media is going to have to cover it. If the indictments are behind the scenes people that nobody's ever heard
Agreed.
of, they'll poo-poo it and it's not news. It's
It doesn't speak volumes of Jake Sullivan, who's a high up in making strategic decisions. Obviously, a bold-faced liar and has no scruples. So, do you trust him on other things? No.
No, I mean, this puts his credibility into question on every decision.
No question. Well, speaking of being unhinged, because I believe Hillary is unhinged, she never got over 2016. AOC, she's someone, she was a bartender, okay? And then she was discovered by someone who actually had a brain. His name I do not recall, an Indian tech guy. And she was the rock star. She was it. She was Elvis, Mick Jagger, and Paul McCartney wrapped into one. She was on every show. Now she's becoming a little more than a little unhinged. She basically is now thinking, first of all, when she said the Republicans just want to date her, okay, yes, I understand. There's no ego there. And then she was saying that Congress is just a big shit show, and she's essentially above it. So you can laugh that off. Then she was campaigning for one of her socialist congressional candidates in Texas, and made the case that the Israelis are putting Palestinian children in cages, which has been rebuked around the world, even by Nancy Pelosi, believe it or not.
Yeah, AOC.
She's becoming unhinged.
Well, she also, in an interview with the New Yorker,